Welcome to the top 7 Magnus Carlsberg blunders. He's probably the best player in the world, which makes it even more exciting when he makes mistakes. And it also reminds us that he's only human like the rest of us. This time, just for a bit of fun, the spirit of the grandfather of the world-class blunder, Father McDougal, is hidden somewhere in this list. Leave a comment if you manage to spot him. And without any further ado, let's get stuck in. So the first entry in the list is the Blitz Championship of 2006. Magnus has the white pieces, the white pawns are moving up the board. Gagunashvili has the black pieces, the black pawns are moving down the board. This blunder would have been higher in the list were it not for it being a blitz game, so we'll give some leeway to Carlsberg here. The white king captures the pawn to stop it from queening, so the black rook gives a check, and the white king comes down to the back rank. And now Gagunashvili brings his king in closer, ready to pick up this pawn should the rook move. And Magnus does move the rook to pick up the last remaining black pawn, and Gagunashvili captures the second last remaining white pawn. And here Carlsberg pushes his pawn, which is of course a huge blunder. I'll give you a couple of seconds to spot what the error is. I think you'll get it. Let's see. Of course, it was instant checkmate. So good job, Carlsberg. You have been crushed. In at number 6, it's the 2005 Rapid World Cup. Magnus has had a refill and he's ready to go. He's playing Bareev, who has the black pieces. Carlsberg has these two connected passed pawns that he wants to get across to the other side, so he starts with a g6. And Bareev brings his bishop to f4. And Carlsberg plays queen to f8 with check, which of course is a huge catastrophic blunder. But it's not immediately obvious why. It's actually very nice, so let's analyze this a bit. It gives Bareev the opportunity to bring his king down to b7, and if you look carefully, the white king is now blocked in. He can't move anywhere. He's just, completely a prisoner. And Bareev is actually threatening checkmate here with the bishop, so what could Carlsberg do? Well, maybe he can capture the bishop, you say. Well, let's try that. He captures the bishop, and this gives Bareev the chance to deliver a check, and the only square for the king now is b4. And so this allows the rook to come in behind the king, delivering a check. So after the king moves, of course, Magnus is losing his queen. And this rook's just going to eat up all the pawns, and then Bareev's going to win. So Magnus can't capture the bishop in this position. So what else can he do? Well, there's still this checkmate threat. Maybe he can deliver a check himself and do something this way. Well, okay, but then the bishop can still deliver the check here. It's not checkmate because the only move available is for the queen to capture the bishop and lose the queen. And this is what happened, and this was the result. And bad luck, Magnus, you've been crushed once more. At number 5, it's the 2020 Legends of Chess Rapid game. Magnus is on the black beers, but playing with the white pieces, and his opponent is Ivanchuk. Magnus starts out with queen to e8, and Ivanchuk just moves his king down. And Magnus returns to e3, delivering a check, so Ivanchuk moves his king up. And this time, instead of just repeating, Magnus plays his queen to b3, which of course is a horrendous blunder that loses the game. I'll give you a couple of seconds to see if you can spot the problem. Well, I'm sure you managed to do it. Simply queen to d7 with check. The king is completely locked in, and the only thing that Carlsberg can do now is to throw away all of his pieces until it's checkmate. So, for example, block with the queen captures with check, a block with the rook, queen captures with check, and block with the pawn, and queen captures with checkmate. So a nice one, Ivanchuk. Bad luck, Magnus, you were crushed again. At number 4 is the 2022 Rapid Chessable Masters competition. Magnus is on the alcohol-free beers because he's playing the Indian child chess prodigy with the enormous name. The prodigy starts with rook to e7, and Magnus just pushes his d-pawn. And the white king comes over to f1 because he probably wants to get in front of the black pawns before they get too far down the board. And here Magnus just captures the pawn, and the prodigy captures a pawn back here on f6, and we have knight to g4 from Carlsberg, which is a catastrophic blunder that loses a piece. Of course, the prodigy simply delivers a check on the king here, and he picks up a free piece. And he'll go on to win the game, so bad luck, Magnus, you've been crushed again. At number 3, we have a 2015 European Team Chess Championship event played at classical time controls. And of course, this is much more classy than the games we've seen before, so Magnus has upgraded his drinks. He's playing Pelletier here, who has the black pieces, but Magnus starts with rook to b8. Now, Pelletier delivers a check with the knight here, so Magnus moves his king. And Pelletier plays king to c7, threatening the rook. Now here, Magnus should probably bring his rook back to b5, keeping on the open file, but instead he plays a massive blunder and brings his rook over to g8, threatening the pawn. Now, the problem here is that knight to e7, which is what was played, threatens the rook whilst revealing an attack on the white knight here. And so Magnus captures the pawn, threatening the knight, but this capture here comes with check. So after the king moves, the rook has a chance to escape back and protect the knight, which is what was played, and now Magnus is a whole knight down. So bad luck, Magnus, you got smashed. In at number 2 is the 2017 London Chess Classic competition, and Magnus is getting very serious. He's bought his 4-pack and he's playing Nepo, who has the black pieces. From this position, Carlsberg starts with knight captures pawn, and Nepo just brings his knight to b6, and Magnus pushes his c-pawn. But this allows Nepo to capture it, because after rook captures pawn and the pawn captures the rook back, the queen can capture the rook, delivering a check, so the king has to move, and the queen picks up the knight. So at the moment, Carlsberg is a knight down. But he has the opportunity here to capture the knight back with the pawn, which he really should do, but he doesn't. He tries to be clever. He moves his queen to c6, which threatens the rook. So this is, of course, a huge blunder. I'll let you see if you can spot Nepo's next move. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Well, of course, I'm sure you managed to do it. It was queen to a4, which protects the rook through the queen, but also threatens this this bishop here, which would come with check. And yeah, so Magnus can't just capture the knight here because he'll lose the bishop and it will be horrible. So he is forced to capture the queen, and the knight captures back, and Magnus has ended up a whole piece down. So once more, crushed. And in first place, it's the 2014 World Chess Championship match between Carlsberg and Anand. Now, Carlsberg, of course, is taking this super seriously. He's brought a whole keg with him to make sure he can see it through the game. And he starts out from here with bishop to d1. We have a rook across to the open file, and Carlsberg puts his bishop back where it came from. And Anand puts his rook back where it came from. Now, Carlsberg's not interested in going for draws. He wants to win. This is the World Chess Championship after all. So he plays king to d2, something different, but of course this is a catastrophic blunder. Why is this? Well, it allows Anand first to capture this a5 pawn, forcing the rook to capture on g8. But the knight can now capture a second pawn, and because of the position of the king on d2, it comes with check. So after the king moves, the knight checks again, and the king moves again. Anand has enough time to pick up the rook and be 2 full pawns up in a World Chess Championship game. So awesome for Anand, well done him, except that there is a twist. So let's go back to Magnus's blunder. After king to d2, what Magnus did not realise was that Anand had actually been on the beers himself. He's been drinking Ananda India Pale Ale, his favourite, of course. So in this position, he did not spot the blunder. He, in fact, pushed his pawn to a4. So 2 blunders in a row in a World Chess Championship match is just crazy. From this position, Magnus was then able to claw his way back and win this game. So well done, Magnus. And not only that, he clawed his way all the way to winning the World Chess Championship of 2014. So excellent job from him. Well, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad you joined me for this run through the top 7 Carlsberg blunders, and I'll see you again next time for more chess.